Hi, I'm John Kirkgasser. I'm here with another of my video testimonies. This one's entitled, There's More. The Lord got me involved with some pretty extensive business travel that took me to meet some pretty amazing people, and those folks led me through some pretty amazing experiences that opened my eyes. And it's a pretty cool story. I hope you enjoy it. So the company needed some help with its strategic planning and policy deployment process. They had selected a process where there's a structured flow down and bottoms up engagement to ensure linkage of objectives from the top to the bottom and left and right across the organization. And they needed some help leading that process, and they picked me. So that required that the wife and I live in Connecticut instead of Florida. So we basically moved to Connecticut for 3 weeks out of every month, drug the dog up there, and this was fall leading into winter. There's 100 different organizations, so there's 100 facilitated events with the executives. It was like, okay, this is a big deal. I need help. So we hired a guy, and the first day he's on the job, the wife and I take him out to dinner, and we're getting to know each other, and the subject of health came up, and Ashley and I are describing some of her chronic issues, and he's like, "Oh, okay, now I understand." I said, "What do you mean?" So I was in a great job down in Georgia, and the Lord gave me a message. I need to leave and come up here. It's like, okay. So what's your background that you'd be called to go do this? Well, he describes a whole bunch of his testimonies where, for example, he got a message to go to support Afghanistan. So he gets hooked up and goes over there. He arrives and the Lord tells him to fast for 10 days, and he fasts for 10 days. And the day of the end of the fast, the Lord gives him a message to go down and have breakfast in the cafeteria and to sit across from the guy at the first table. So he goes down and sits across to the guy, and he gets a message in his head, ministry. And so he starts chatting with the guy, and sure enough, he's a minister, and he had to leave his congregation, and then he gets a message in his head, illness. And so he asks him, "So what's going on?" He said, "Oh, I got some cancer issues." And he turns his head around. There's a big tumor on the back of his head. And I said, "Oh, okay. So I'm supposed to pray for you." And they go in the conference room and hit it hard for a bit, and within a week the cancer falls off the back of his head. And he goes through experience after experience, like a long chain of experiences that like, oh, okay, so this guy goes from place to place, and the Lord leads him into engagements, and amazing things happen. So like, okay, so this is different. This is well beyond my religious experience, and hadn't heard much about, you hear about miracles, but if you're remote from that topic, it's not front and center in your attention. And Matthew says, well, that's clearly why I'm here. You're what you've been praying for your wife to get better, and this is the answer. So we go back to the hotel room, and Matthew's applying the Pentecostal principles. He's pleading the blood of Jesus, and laying hands on, and speaking in tongues, and rebuking, and invoking healing, and all very fervent and vocal and committed and energetic, and I'm sitting there like, well, okay, this is different. And Ashley says, what did we get ourselves into here? This is very different. And we did that a couple nights. And the third day, where Matthew catches up with me at work, and he says, I'm not getting anything out of this. I'm not sure this is connecting. Maybe this is for you. And I said, what do you mean? Well, maybe this is to get your attention. So, okay, all right. So we had several conversations about that, and what's my agenda, what's my interest, what's my disposition, what's my religious position, what do I believe, et cetera, et cetera. I grew up in a Presbyterian. I'm a John 3:16 believer. I belief is good enough, and when you need something, you pray, and you try to lead a good moral life. Right? That's your agenda, and you expect to get into heaven someday. That's about as much as I'd paid attention to. With the death of my mother, that kind of got my attention, and I was a little more cognizant of this pulled it out of the background. But like, wow, this guy's very intense and very serious, and has, he describes experience after experience where the Lord led him someplace, and amazing things happen. He's got a dozen stories, and it's like, okay, cool. So I asked him, how do you get smart on this? How do you learn in? And his comment was, faith comes from hearing, and hearing from the Word of God. And he suggested listening to some of the lectures and sermon speeches from some of the charismatic preachers, Randy Clark, Bill Johnson, John Wimber, and then Rick Renner, and Andrew Womack, all good folks. Started listening to those, so that's what I did. I started listening to those guys and trying to understand their perspective, where they're coming from, what's their theology, what's their belief structure, and how does it work for them, and it was pretty cool. So I'm working on projects at work. So I'm splitting time. 3 weeks up north and 1 week in Florida. My buddy, another buddy, got drafted to fill in for me on the 3 weeks that I'm up north, and I do an overlap with him for a couple days. One month he's basically there for a month at a time. So we shared an office for a few days in the overlap, and I'm describing some of the stuff that I'm experiencing with Matthew, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm there." He says, "What do you mean?" So he grew up in a very strong Baptist environment, right? His aunts would read the Bible to him every day, and he'd have to read it back, and they got into memorization mode, and they're like intense, strong believers, and very heavy scriptural based, and all over it. And I started asking him about spiritual experiences, and he goes, "Oh yeah, I've had a bunch." Uh, and he goes story after story of amazing things that happened in him and in his family, and in his immediate community that he was intimately familiar with. I was like, okay, so this guy's another guy that has seen it and experienced it. It's like, okay. So another character in this story, my partner in this strategic planning activity was Janet, a wonderful lady based up in Connecticut. Really sharp, really supportive, really encouraging, and so tolerant of all of the crap we get. Anytime you try to drive change in an organization, you're going to get crap, and the challenge is how do you get in front of it, and how do you deal with it when you get it. And she was amazing. Wonderful lady. Good, great partner to have in this activity. We got to know her pretty well. She actually is involved in her church quite heavily, Presbyterian, just like I was growing up. She's a member of the Presbyterian church, and involved in all of the activities of the church, in the bell choir and whatnot. The various groups within the church, and invited us to their Christmas activity. They had a Christmas concert for the choirs and the bell choirs. Went over to that, and sitting there in the back of that church, I felt an amazing presence. It was like my mother was sitting right there with me in that pew, in this Presbyterian church. It's a pretty Mormon touching experience. Um, that told me that she's there, and she was with me and supporting me in this activity. It had been 15 years, and that may have been the first time I had been in a church since she passed. So just a pretty cool feeling. I could swear she was sitting right there with me as I was enjoying this choir. So touching experience. So these three friends I got to know really well. Uh, this full immersion work job and spending days on end with these various folks was pretty cool, and I got to know some people much deeper than I would have otherwise, and appreciated what they've experienced, and opened my eyes to their spiritual lives and what they're getting out of it. So my buddy ends up down in West Palm Beach with me. We're doing some planning for our campaign. So lo and behold, two of the folks that Matthew has been following for years are scheduled to appear at a local church down in West Palm Beach, at the Cedro Church, and Randy Clark and Bill Johnson, along with some other folks. And this like, wow, okay, that's a pretty amazing circumstance. This guy comes all the way down to Florida, and I'm here this particular week, and these guys are here, and these are the guys we've been talking about. It's like, okay, I guess we need to go. So we got tickets and we went, and what an amazing experience, right? They hold a whole weekend, 2.5 days of sessions where there's a bit of a lecture, and then there'll be a healing event, an altar call, and group healing activities. So I go to two of the sessions, and you could feel the presence in the room. That just struck me. You could feel the heavy presence of the Lord in the room, and these folks were there were dozens and dozens of folks laid out on the floor, and the ministers were calling out words of knowledge. You in the back, you've got a shoulder issue that came on at work, and now you've got headaches, and the person stands up and raises their hand, and they come up, and he lays hands on them, and they're flat out on the floor. It struck. I was struck originally as maybe this is like showmanship kind of thing, but after a while, it got to the point where it's like you could feel that there was energy in the room well beyond a normal group of people. 1,000 people in an auditorium. This was a powerful session. So that got my attention. So I had a couple conversations with some of the leaders there. I went up and talked to them and said, I'm committed to try to get my wife healed. She's not of the active religious vocal participation. She's a very private religious person. She believes, but she's not in the evangelical community. She doesn't like the loud music and the fervent prayer activities, and that's too much for her. So Lord, I need help. I need help getting her healed, and I explained that to the various folks. I was like, well, we can certainly pray for her in intercession mode, and we can pray for you, me as in me, to receive a gift of healing, so that you can help to heal her. What I'm like, whatever. I just need help with this. I don't know how to pursue it and where to go. I'm new. I'm exploring, so I need help. So several of the different folks did a prayer. They laid hands on me and prayed for me to be anointed to help heal, and for her to be healed. Right. That was kind of what it was, and I felt a strong feel in my heart that this is the right track. This is the right direction to be following. So get on your horse and get going. It was kind of the message I got. There is more, and you need to dig in and go. And I was impressed. It struck me, and it's like there is more to this. There is more to this. All these stories of these guys now that I've gotten to know for several months, as very credible and very practical and and down to earth folks doing day-to-day stuff and applying this perspective to their life. And okay, cool, all right. So I need to dig in. I need to dig in. That was my conclusion. There is more. There is more to this world than just believing. The spiritual world actually has a presence here. So I need to dig in. So reflecting on this whole adventure, clearly the Lord took me out of my comfort zone, put me on this temporary assignment where I needed to get out of my normal mode. That got me to meet a bunch of really cool folks, get to know them a whole bunch deeper than I would have if I was just doing it at work. So spending 5 or 6 months with folks all day, every day, and connecting with them at night, getting to know them socially, and got me a much deeper understanding of them as individuals, what their beliefs are, and how that leads them in their life. That was pretty cool. A lot deeper than I would have normally got. Opened my eyes to some spiritual experiences and some charismatic preachers. Then these near-death experiences opened my eyes, and then this Awaken Revival piece with Randy Clark and Bill Johnson, and actually got to experience the presence of God in a big auditorium, and it was pretty cool. Where clearly there's more going on than the physical world. I already believed in the eternity bit and the heaven piece, but how does it play in this life? You know, what's the significance of the spiritual world in this life, and how does that play? This opened the door. Clearly there's more, and that motivated me to dig in and start learning. Hope this story helps you. Comment on the video. How does have you had similar experiences? Where did this take you? Does this make sense? If you like this content, hit the like button below. If you want to get more like it, subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell. You'll get a notification when a new video is released. If you have questions or comments, have you experienced anything like this? What did you get out of this video? What did you get when you poked around at the additional resources? Ask a question. I read all the comments and I'll reply. If you like, subscribe, and comment, that tells YouTube that this content is worthy and to be shared to others. And I'd appreciate it if you do that. See you in the next video. Have a great day.